Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this Hump Day edition of Sports Shorts Daily. Ronnie Rance, Tommy Chrysan, TK joining us courtesy of Tremonti's Meat and Seafood as he is hunkered down. We all are, thanks to Hurricane Francine. If you are in the South Louisiana, specifically South Central, Southeast Louisiana, hope all goes well for you today and that the storm gets through very quickly. It's that time of the year. I'm at an undisclosed location. Undisclosed location. Some of you may know what that location is. Others, it just bothers you. I am presented by, of course, the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame, and we are presented by LaBerge Casino. LaBerge Casino is where TK and the boys will be this Saturday morning, 9 to 11, Sports Shorts Radio, 9 to 11. Take you right up until kickoff. I mean, kickoff's what, 11:05 or whatever at South Carolina. They'll be watching game day. They'll let you know who Lee Corso, what helmet he put, what headgear he puts on and all that kind of stuff. Tigers a touchdown and a half favorite over South Carolina. 50.5 is the over-under in that game. Don't know that I might take the under on that one. I'm thinking about it, but might take the under on that one. Tommy Christ, we've got a lot to get to today. Of course, it's the anniversary of 9/11. We'll talk about that. 23 years now have passed since 9/11. The Saints are on the road this weekend at Jerry World, the opening game of the season at home for the Cowboys. They looked really good last week. Both teams looked really good last week, so something's got to give. Cowboys are a 6.5-point favorite over the Saints. The Bills and Dolphins, a good one tomorrow night. I mean, we've had some good NFL games week one, especially the national games. And tomorrow night, the Dolphins are a 2.5-point favorite at home against Buffalo. Both teams won their opener. But Tyreek Hill, that story is the big story of that game, the big story of the first week of the season in South Florida. We'll talk about the police video and all that Tommy and I saw, and I know you did too. Also, is it the end for Colorado and Deion Sanders? If you've been paying attention, the Buffaloes are 1-1. They survived a week one victory. They got blown out on the road at Nebraska. Remember, this was a Nebraska team a year ago that Colorado beat at home. This time around, they got trumped on the road at Nebraska. They take on Colorado State on the road this week, and it just seems like Deion and the boys are unraveling. Tommy has some thoughts. We'll talk about that as well. But first, being that it is the anniversary of 9/11, 23 years ago today, that the Twin Towers, the Pentagon, et cetera, the Flight 93 crashed in the field, and the world was shook, particularly in the United States. What are your thoughts on this anniversary each year, Tommy?
Well, it's 23 years. You go, wow. Parts of me I will tell you exactly where I was when it happened, and it changed the world in many ways. And many people still feeling the impact, and you still got a lot of people that lost loved ones and friends and coworkers and all of that stuff. And I know there was a big ceremony at Ground Zero this morning. I didn't see any clips. I just saw some posts about it, but just the worst situation in the history of our country by far. So just terrible. And Ronnie, I was actually on the radio in Baton Rouge when that happened. I was on the 5th floor of the Xerox building. It was the score, 12:10 a.m. John Fine and I, who did radio for many years, were doing a show. A guy named Vic, who's still a friend of mine, he was a caller from Metairie. That's back when shows were caller driven. He called up. Hey, Vic, good morning. How are you? He says, man, there's a problem in New York. Hey, what's the problem? He said, a plane hit a building. And I said, back then they had traffic planes would fly over and go, I-10, 12 splits backed up, or it's traffic's busy on Sherwood Forest, whatever. I thought, okay, a traffic plane hit a building in New York. And I said that. I said, well, Vic, is that one of them like traffic planes that hit a building? He goes, no, this is much more serious than that. We have a problem. And he hung up. And within seconds, Bob Murphy, who still works over there at 96.1 The River, he ran into the booth, which we could see through the glass. Danny Church was running the board, and he pushed a button. He like ran in there and pushed the button and immediately put NBC News on or whatever the news affiliate was back then and cut us off the air like, boom, done. And the news comes on. And so like John Fine's like, what's going on here? We were buying airtime. He was worried about every minute. He said, what is this? And how long are we going to be off the air for? And Danny Church said, we have no idea. There's some major problem. And we were told to go to news. Well, we come out the booth within minutes, and the WJBO booth was 2 or 3 doors down from the Score. And we all piled in there. I believe Ed Buggs was on the air. I'd have to get somebody to remind me of that. We had like 10. We had like 10 people. I think it was Ed Buggs or Clarence Buggs was doing the morning talk show on WJBO. 11.
It might have been Ed. It might have been Ed.
All right, so we like 10 people, some of the sales people who were already there, because obviously it was early in the morning, some of the office people, a bunch of us crammed in the WJBO booth, which was not a big booth, and there was a little bitty TV, like a 12-inch TV up in the corner of this booth for monitoring things. And we all got in there, and that TV was on, and of course JBO had switched to news, national news feed. And we were in there when the second plane hit the second tower. We saw it, we watched it with our eyes, like 10 or 12 of us crammed into this little bitty booth. And, and they're like, oh man. And they're like, okay, everybody still don't really know what happened. And now all of a sudden they said, nobody's going back on the air. Ed Buggs is not, John Fine and I are not, and whatever, the River, and whatever. They had a couple of other stations up there. I went home, because they said, we don't know how long this is going to be. So I went home and put the TV on and probably sat there for 10, 12 hours. Just, thought I was watching a movie. It was unreal. It was surreal. It's like, can this really be happening? I remember the one video of the people running down a street in New York with that cloud of rubbish, smoke, whatever behind them. And I'm thinking, that looks like, you're watching a movie, Hollywood, big screen. And I remember, and then of course, the information started coming out. We didn't know everything right away. We learned much more in the coming days and weeks, but that's actually where I was on the radio. And, it's a moment in my life and everyone who's around it that you're never going to forget. And I know it's all over social media today, never forget 9/11. And that's true because of what happened to our country and so many people who lost loved ones, family members, friends, co-workers, all the first responders. That there was a picture the other day of that fire truck going across one of the bridges in New York, like whatever the ladder number was, and everybody on that truck perished minutes later when they went right into the ground zero area or the Twin Tower area. There's a lot of eerie pictures like that still coming up. And then of course, a lot of people have been interviewed this week who lost vast family members. So it's probably it's the most horrific event of our lifetime in the country's history. And then, of course, you were in Baton Rouge at the time too.
Yeah. My story's not near as good. I just just getting ready to work, and had like the Today Show on or Good Morning America on or something, and was about to get in my car to drive to Lafayette. And when it all happened, and I basically just, sat there in front of the TV for probably at least 2 hours, and then went on to Lafayette to kind of go to that office and kind of basically, I don't know, probably watched it over there and just kind of talk about it or whatever we did. But it was, look, Pearl Harbor, you didn't get to see it. Right. You heard about it. And when obviously you heard about it, and then you saw the newsreel in the movie theaters and stuff like that later on. But this, we were watching live, like you said, it was like a movie because you couldn't believe it. And at first I remember when the first tower hit, the whole conversation about, is it a helicopter tour? Is it a new traffic plane? But then, we were unsure. And of course, you want to believe that it's not terrorism. You want to believe that someone didn't intentionally flash it. But then also, I think I remember there was conversation about, was it suicide? And at the first, when the first plane hit, we didn't really know initially like that it was a passenger plane. It took a little bit for the videos to get out, or for later on we saw, but like at first plane hit the building. It didn't say it was a 737 or anything like that, right? But then obviously once the second plane hit, then you knew, okay, well, this is terrorism and we got a problem. And then the reports start coming in. There's another plane hijacked and another plane hijacked. And it's like, oh man, this could be World War III. But it changed a lot beyond just thousands, tons of people died, tons of people's families and were generationally in the city and everything was affected. And, we haven't talked about the Pentagon, we haven't talked about the field and Flight 93 and all that. But, look at how we travel changed. Uh, Look, there was a lot of people. I dated a girl 15, 16, 17 years ago. She got anxiety after 9/11 and didn't fly for like 7 years, and she wasn't on any of these planes. She just, the anxiety of it that, oh my God, that affected so many people. I'm sure there was probably tons of people that didn't want to fly or couldn't fly or whatever back then because of the thoughts that were in their heads. Just a crazy time. We always will remember it for our generation and for those that probably are the non-Pearl Harbor generation. This is right up there with JFK's assassination. This is, one of those just giant moments in your life that you kind of mark in time before and after, before 9/11 and after 9/11. And I'm 52 years old. There's nothing that is more before or after than 9/11. I mean, we think of so many things now with that timestamp on it. And my brother-in-law, Case, he joined the Army right out of high school. Was so moved to want to help his country that he joined the Army. He later went back to college and everything. But just affected so many people's lives. But
Well,
anyway,
you make a good point. Pearl Harbor Day. That's my birthday, December 7th. Okay, so when I learned about it in school, it was different attention because it was the day of my birth. But you're right. We didn't see it. We didn't feel it. We learned about it. We saw and felt 9/11. The firemen and the policemen and the ambulance people and all the people working in the surrounding hospitals, and just something they'll never forget.
all right, well, talk a little sports here. A couple of local stories, obviously, to get to. LSU. The line was 8.5. Now it's 7.5. Kind of been holding steady right there, over 50.5 at South Carolina. I will tell you that ever since game day was announced, there's a lot more juice to this game. I've talked to people, that I'm going to be in Dallas for the Cowboys Saints game this weekend. I'm going to go see my sister and everything lives in Dallas, but there's a lot of people that are now trying to get to South Carolina. That all of a sudden South Kentucky, and now this is a game and get college game days there. Now there's a sense of urgency, I think, by LSU fans that can to go to Columbia. But with the hurricane and all happening, Tommy, and that distraction this week in Baton Rouge, the early kickoff, college game day, this is all not adding up very good for LSU.
Yeah, and a lot of LSU fans want to go tell Paul Maneri hello, right? No, I'm just kidding. There might be some. Yeah, I'm sure some will do that. But yeah, I mean, this game, Brian Kelly walks back the running game, said after looking at the film, and coaches look at film differently than people, said it's not as bad as you think. Oh, okay, 64 yards on 21 carries against Nichols. I think it's pretty bad. But you're right. This has got, like, I'm gonna steal your word, Ryan. There's a oogie feeling around this game. With what everybody in Louisiana is focused on Hurricane Francine, and schools are closed today and tomorrow, so everybody's routine is different, drastically different. Most, including Tremonti's, most places closed today. So I don't know, man. It's going to be curious to see how this game unfolds. Again, as I said Monday on Sports Shows Daily, when the line came out that LSU was an 8.5-point favorite, I thought that was high. I'm like, holy smokes, that's a little higher than I would have guessed. It is now down to 7, depending on where you shop. And of course, ESPN Bet Sportsbook has all that information for you. The morning kickoff, which typically on the road, morning kickoffs hadn't been good to LSU in the big picture. Game day there. I mean, it's
For the first time ever.
yeah, there's a lot of layers to this matchup that you never would have dreamed of only 10 days ago. 2 weeks ago, certainly you wouldn't have said. If I'd have told you, Ronnie, back August the 28th, said, by the way, I think I think game day is going to be at the OSU South Carolina game. You'd have said, TK, stay out of the Jefferson Lounge day. You've been there too long. But it's a fact. And, LSU's been suspect in their two performances. South Carolina, went into Lexington. I think Kentucky's a decent team. Well, they're not world beaters, but went into Lexington, a road game in the SEC. And then we got 16 teams in the SEC. South Carolina's in first place. Leave it at that.
And beat them handily too, not
Yeah,
just
yeah. You didn't get out of there with a field goal. They dominated.
Yeah, no. If you'd told me last Saturday morning when we were on Sports Shorts Radio over at Fat Daddy's in Plaquemine that they would be the college game day, you'd be like, "What?" But the big win changed everything, and the lack of marquee matchups this weekend as well. Yeah, I'm not very confident in this one. I mean, I hope obviously. This is a giant game already, week 3 of 12, because now this is a game you can lose. LSU fans didn't have this one as really one that they were sweating that bad. This is a sweat. I don't care that 7.5-point favorite. It feels closer than that. It feels like a coin flip game to me, based off of what they did last week. And when you throw in the distraction, I mean, think about it. These are 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds that their schedules are changing, the school's canceling, they're worried about their girlfriends and their families. A lot of them are from Louisiana. Do I evacuate? What are we doing? You got that distraction. And then, oh, by the way, we got to go over early. We got to get up at the crack of dawn. If they win by 1, you should be happy, LSU fans. Get out of there with a win and survive and advance. That should be the theme of this one, no question about it. And by the way, Brian Kelly talking about the run game isn't that bad after I had a look at it. Reminds me of the story, 1999, LSU baseball. Jim Schwanke is the hitting coach. And LSU won 3 national championships at that point, right? 91, 93, or 4, 91, 93, 96, and 97. 1998, they go to the College World Series. They're 2-0 at the College World Series, and then they lose the next 2, so they finish like 3rd. Well, in 99, Kurt Ainsworth, first-round pick that year and everything, the founder of Marucci, they lost in a super regional at Alabama. Alabama was very good still under Jim Wells. And so that, just to give you, and then, of course, 2000, they win the national championship. But in 99, it was Jim Schwanke's last year as recruiting coordinator and hitting coach. That year they set a record in the SEC for strikeouts, or at least an LSU record for strikeouts. I think it was an SEC record. They were all or nothing. They were gorilla ball, either hitting a homer or not. And in 99, they changed the bats, went from the -5 to the -3s. There was a bat change. They struck out a bunch. They were still really good, but they weren't LSU really good. And so Skip's upset. He's upset about some recruiting things as well. It's towards the end of the season. Schwanke can feel that maybe he may not be back next year. There's some tension there. And he's trying to save himself a little bit. And they get beat like 2 out of 3 on the road that weekend, Tommy. And it's a Monday morning, and Jim Schwanke comes into the office, and he's got the hit chart. Now, the hit chart is a chart that they keep that has to do with quality at bat chart. It's called a quality at bat chart. It's did you hit the ball hard? Did you move the runner over? Did you sacrifice fly? Did you hit it on the left side when we wanted you to? All that kind of stuff, right? And it's a different chart than the book. And so he brings the quality at bat chart in, and he walks in, and Skip's sitting there at his desk smoking a cigar. And he walks in and knocks on the door. Coach, you got a minute? Hey, listen, I was looking at the quality at bat chart from this past weekend, and wasn't that bad. We did some good things a little bit here. And he takes the hit chart and he hands it to Skip, and Skip takes the hit chart and he looks at it a minute and he goes, quality at bat chart. Hey, Jim. You know what I think of your quality at bat chart? And he holds it up and he takes his cigar and he lights it on fire.
That's beautiful.
Turtle Thomas was the hitting coach next year, and they won the national championship.
Well, that might be a good analogy for Brian Kelly saying the run game wasn't that bad. Okay, I like the connection you made there.
Yeah. reminded me of some bullshit. Is what it reminded me of.
Fluff, right?
Well,
We're trying to put lipstick on a pig here.
right. Um, Well, one thing we don't need to put lipstick on a pig right now is the New Orleans Saints. I mean, they just played one of their best games in the last decade, regardless of who's at quarterback, who the opponent is. They 47 points, dominant fashion, offense, defense, special teams. Like it literally was one of the best performances of the last decade for the New Orleans Saints. Now they get tested on the road. It's going to be a hostile environment. It's going to be the first home game of the year. Dak Prescott just got his big contract, 4 years, $240 million. So he's feeling good. The crowd's fired up. Cowboys went on the road last week. So now you got these two teams that might have played the two best of any team in the NFL last week. They both 1-0. Something's got to give. I obviously, the bookies think that Cinderella is going to strike midnight on the Saints with a 6.5-point line, but I will be in that number with some great seats. This is a game that you picked the Saints to lose. I think we all think the Saints are going to lose this game. It's a question of just whether they cover or not. What do you think?
Well, the Cowboys and the Saints are 1-0. The Cowboys beat the Browns. Browns aren't going to win a lot of games. Saints beat the Panthers. They're not going to win a lot of games. So we got to keep that in mind. Although you can't deny that Derek Carr had a really good game. Alvin Kamara had a really good game. Shahidi had a really good game. The defense played really good in spots. But again, it was Carolina. So you got to try to weigh that. Hey, with the Saints, they're probably not as good as they look because it was Carolina. Because I think Carolina is bad. Okay, I mean they win 3 games this year. They ought to do a cartwheel down the street. But so looking at that, but still, winning an NFL game is tough. I remember Michael Lewis, the beer man, return guy, visited with him one day in Baton Rouge before we did an interview. And he said, "Man, people don't understand how hard it is to win an NFL game. You got 53 guys on the other sideline getting paid. You got coaches getting paid to win the same game you're trying to win." I never forgot Michael telling me that. And so I think of that when, hey, they beat Carolina. Carolina's an NFL team. They're going to be in the bottom of the heap, but they're an NFL team. There's 53 pro football players and their coaching staff. Cleveland Browns are a disaster. Who knows what's going to happen with all that? But nonetheless, you are what your record says you are. The Cowboys and Saints are 1-0. And one of these teams is going to get a big win to be 2-0 and off to a great start. Now, this is the 6th straight year the Saints won their opening game. Okay, and we know the last couple of years didn't go as well, so it's not real indicative of what's going to happen in 17, 18 more weeks. But I think it's going to be one of the games of the weekend. The NFL, all eyes are going to be on this Saints Cowboys matchup. Dak Prescott, Derek Carr. What's going to happen here in Dallas? Place will be packed. You'll be in the house, and I gotta believe the Cowboys win the game. I got to really digest this 6.5 points. I don't know. This could be a field goal at the buzzer game. It could be an overtime game based on what we saw. But what did we see? How real is all of that? And how realistic is it? And how much of it is an indicator of what we're going to see this week?
I think if you like the Saints and you think realistic chance of winning, buy the 0.5 point. Get the +7. That way, if you lose by a touchdown, you get the push. No blood, and you give yourself there. Field goal late doesn't you win? It'll be a fun one. Looking forward to it, man. When the games of the week noon this Sunday from Jerry World, which most people think is the best venue in the country still for sports. And after going to Vegas and after being in Jerry World. Jerry World's better than the stadium in Vegas, and bigger and better and all that. So looking forward to it. All right, big game tomorrow night, Thursday night football. Tua versus Allen. Tua's 2.5-point favorite. The Dolphins survived advance. They looked bad for 3 quarters. Came in, had a good 4th quarter. Tyreek Hill with an 80-yard touchdown. Field goal late at the horn, and the Dolphins win against. Who'd the Dolphins face?
They had to come back a little bit. I'm gonna pull it up right now.
Drawing a blank.
Yeah.
Who's Brian?
I got Dolphins beat the Jaguars.
Brian Thomas plays for the Jaguars. Had a touchdown in it. Former LSU receiver, Walker High receiver. But the story has been this Tyreek Hill situation. If you remember, he was pulled over, handcuffed, put to the ground. They held him for detained him, gave him a couple speeding ticket and careless operation or something like. Oh no seatbelt and a ticket. Released him. He played. Obviously, had the touchdown. He did the celebration where he acted like he was arresting him and walked him off the field. He went on a tirade after the game. What we didn't know at the time was that Campbell, a teammate of his, was also handcuffed and held before they released him. He had pulled over his vehicle to find out what was going on and to help out, and they arrested him or handcuffed him, detained him, if you will, for a few minutes. Didn't issue him. So anyway, it's been a mess. The Miami-Dade the sheriff's department, they released over 100 minutes worth of police camera footage, which is incredible considering the whole situation lasted about 5 minutes or so with Tyreek Hill, but yet they had over 100 minutes worth of camera footage from all the different police that they released. After watching the footage, my quick takeaway, Tommy, is that yes, Tyreek was being a pain in the ass. Yes, he was being uncooperative. If you listen to what they're saying when they walk up to the vehicle, he's not cooperating right away and all that. But the second cop, because the first cop finally tapped on the, finally said, get out of the vehicle. And you could see it looked like he was taking off his seatbelt and he was kind of getting there. The second cop came in, opened the door, yanked him out, and really escalated the thing and took him to the ground. I definitely think it wasn't going in a good way. Tyreek wasn't cooperating. Cop was frustrated, whatever. But it didn't escalate to the point of craziness. It was that second cop who came in and almost like I felt like wasn't privy to the whole conversation and what was going on. He came in and took it to the next level. I think there's going to be a lawsuit city. I haven't watched the video with why they handcuffed Campbell and what that
I saw that. Campbell pulled his vehicle over in front of Tyreek's. Okay, so he was driving, but he had a passenger, and he got out. He's on the phone, and he's standing next to his vehicle, kind of on the sidewalk, and he's trying to find out what's going on with Tyreek. Tyreek's in a $500,000 car. Okay, so Campbell knows who it is, and another cop goes up to Campbell and says, give me your license. And he must have said that 50 times. And Campbell's like, you can see he's trying to reach for it. Now, Campbell was parked in the street. Again, the guy's like, you're parked in the street. You can't park in the street. Well, Tyreek's car was also in the street. And then all of a sudden, because he didn't give him the license real quick, they handcuff him. I mean, that's ridiculous. Also, now, I'll say this. The way they took Tyreek out of that car and threw him on the ground was wrong. Okay. Because now, was he not being fully cooperative? Sure. Unfortunately, in my life, I've only had one or two things with police and it was no big problem. But if the police officer tells you to roll down the window, you're supposed to roll it down. If the police officer says, go stand over there next to that tree, you go stand over there next to that tree. That's what I was always taught. And you say, yes, sir, no, sir, to the police officer. And this is way before the worlds of body cams and dashboard cams and all that. So I'm not saying Tyreek was perfect in it, but the way they pulled him out of that car and threw him on the ground, and he's saying I had knee surgery, which it was ankle surgery, but that's not important. They didn't know who he was, even though he's in a $500,000 car, a mile from the stadium.
Not true. They did.
They did? Okay.
Camera footage. The second cop walks up while he's still in the vehicle.
Okay, I didn't see that video.
Tyreek Hill.
Yeah. All right, so and then he's yelling at Calais Campbell, called Drew Rosenhaus, who's the agent for Tyreek. He's yelling, call Drew, his agent, which I don't think there's anything wrong with him doing that. He's telling his teammate and friend to do that. But that cop has been put on desk duty or whatever, and you're right, there's lawsuits and consequences are going to come out of this. And while I don't think Tyreek Hill was the perfect angel in this story, I think the police were way out of line based on what I saw. Now, Ronnie, there's also some reports that the video that I saw was really edited and they left some things out, that would give you a better picture or better understanding of what happened. And who knows, in today's world of the media and fake news and and editing clips and AI, and they had a guy got arrested the other day making $10 million off of AI generated music videos. Okay, he made $10 million. He got caught. 10 million. I'm not talking about $100,000. He made 10 million and got caught. So I think when you're watching and listening to almost anything in the world, unless you're there with your own two eyes in person, yeah, we've been conditioned to have doubt. And I'm like you. There's going to be a lot of lawsuits over this. There's going to be apologies from the police department, maybe an apology from Tyreek Hill. Although he kept saying he wants to work with them and get to the bottom of this. I mean, I don't think he. I think he was less wrong than the police officers based on what I saw.
Listen. First off, I am 100% a supporter of the police. My uncle was retired, a 25-year cop.
He's probably watching right now.
And I definitely err on the side of the police, right? No, that's a job nobody wants. It's like being president of the United States. Hey, what you know why we have the choices we have? Because nobody wants that job, right? I mean, what a horrible job, right? If you are a genius CEO, businessman, businesswoman, you don't want that job, So the same with the police. The problem is that now we're at a point in our society right now where people don't value the police. They disrespect the police. These guys, and it's hard for us to put ourselves in their shoes. These men and women, they're getting disrespected on the daily by usually the dregs of society. For the most part, they're not interacting with you and I and normal people and people that are doing the right thing. They're usually interacting with people that are on the fringes and people that might be doing the wrong thing, right? Allegedly doing the wrong thing. Got to use that word, right? So they have zero patience. And everybody says, well, they need training. Well, listen, there's always a bad apple in every bunch, right? Or, that type of thing. The reality is that these, unfortunately, the better cops, why would you want to be a cop? It's a lot of times as these guys are cops because they got to be. They don't have a lot of options. They're ex-military. Some of them might have been a little messed up because of things they went through, whatever the case may be. Seems like a lot of cops are on the juice, which also affects, your how fast and angry you get and that kind of stuff. So it's a combination of everything right now that's going on in society. Used to be 10 years ago, you knocked on a guy's window, you roll it down. He did, now, F you, I ain't rolling it down. Well, then what, I can't tase them. I can't pull out my gun. What am I supposed to do? Can't put my hands up. What are the rules? This son of a bitch won't listen to me. Like, what do you do? I mean, it's so crazy and convoluted and difficult now to be a police officer when we hold these police officers to a standard that's so high, but not the people they're talking to. They can disrespect them or not listen or tell them to go F themselves or whatever, but don't put your hands on them. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't react. Don't do that. I mean, it's just so difficult. And at the end of the day, I watched a lot of the unedited version of this story. Tyreek Hill, could have de-escalated this thing at the beginning if he would have just simply did what he was supposed to do. Roll down the window, give me stuff, keep the window down. He chose to be a smart ass and not listen and be aggravated. And then the second cop came in and just took it to a whole nother level. And then the idea of handcuffing the teammate, detaining the teammate when you don't even issue him a ticket, but you put handcuffs on him. I mean, it wasn't like he was being violent. I mean, it's just
he was
crazy.
Talking on his phone.
Yeah, they lost their shit. This is going to be a major lawsuit. Drew Rose have a field day.
It's kind of a parallel of Scotty Scheffler at the PGA Championship. And then you had some video and you had some eyewitnesses and and that officer no longer works there. I mean, again, it's tough to be a policeman. Not many people.
Both incidents took place less than a mile from the gate. One was from less than a mile from the gate of the golf course. The other was from a mile from the stadium.
Well, and I mean, are the cops supposed to know that the Dolphins are playing and that this $500,000 car is probably a Dolphin player heading to the stadium? Let's hope they have enough awareness, right? Skip always said, hopefully they have enough awareness that on Yeah,
I don't care.
HWA, that there's a Dolphin game a mile, how many blocks up the road, and that this half million, of course, as Dan Patrick pointed out, there might be a lot of $500,000 cars in Miami Beach. Okay, I mean Louis Garcia's probably got two of them, but so I mean, so maybe that if we saw a $500,000 McLaren B720, whatever it was, everybody at the red light would stare at that car here in Baton Rouge because you might see one. But maybe in Miami, there's more than one. Everybody tries to placate everything. Bottom line, I would say this: police have a tough job, and if a police officer asks you to roll the window down, Ronnie, I remember when there was a big controversy about whether you were supposed to get out the car or not if you got pulled over. 'Cause I remember I got pulled over, I would roll the window down. I'm looking like, okay, does he want me to get out the car or not? Because I want to do whatever he wants me to do. Because I got somebody I'm gonna send this ticket to and get it fixed anyway. So I'm just gonna go along, which happened a couple of times. And back in the day when you could get stuff fixed, I did get a couple of them fixed. I wasn't the only one. But anyway, so wow. We'll see what comes of that story down the road, just like it took many weeks to get the whole Scheffler story at the PGA Championship. We'll see.
Let's hope Tyreek takes an Uber to the game on tomorrow night.
Yeah.
All right. We'll save the
What?
topic of Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes till
But
Friday.
I got something for you.
What's that?
Isn't this the day that Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame announces the 2025 class?
We were going to announce it, but because
Oh,
of
with the hurricane? Okay.
back to next Wednesday, 18th.
So next Wednesday. Okay. I remember you saying that. And then, of course, we got the hurricane, the 9/11. Maybe I should have thought of the 9/11 thing. But anyway.
11 thing we could have been okay with. Unfortunately, people are used to it now, and it's obviously
It wasn't like it was last year. Right.
yeah,
Then
but
you wouldn't have.
but because of the hurricane and it be all the news stations, sports, half hurricane coverage, we punted to next Wednesday. So we'll announce the 2025 Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame class next Wednesday, 18th.
All right, no doubt about it. Again, Tremonti's Meat and Seafood closed today, like many, many, many places are. But if you get out, don't leave the house unless you have to. I don't have to. I'm not going to. But if you going somewhere, make sure somebody that you're going to see is open or whatever. All schools are closed. Everybody's routine is different. But Tremonti's, like everyone else, planning on opening up tomorrow. Quick note for you, Ronnie. Court Street Cafe, they got their steak night on Saturday nights. It's now Tremonti's ribeyes, Tremonti's fillets being served at Court Street Cafe. Jason at Court Street and Mike Tremonti have a deal. They're also using some of Tremonti's sausage in their gumbo at Court Street Cafe in Port Allen. So great to see two of our sponsors and supporters mixing it up and then doing a little business with each other. That's much appreciated. And more reasons for everybody to like and share this show and stop by the LeBare's Casino and all the other sponsors that we have. And again, Saturday morning, Derry Beckwith and I will be live and in color from the ESPN Bet Sportsbook 9 to 11.
All right, for Tommy Christ and Rance, hope everyone stays safe. Prayers to South Louisiana that we get through this very quickly. Friday morning, we're back on the air.
Well, I can tell light rain. I'm looking out my windows right now. Light rain in southeast part of Baton Rouge, St. George, where I live.
Prayers for Demco, Tommy, where I'm at, and Denham Springs, that the power holds tight. But when it does go out, it comes back quickly. I've got the air down real low. I got the car full of gas, so that if I got to go out and sit in the AC for a couple of hours,
charge the phone. That's the other thing. People, you can charge your phone in the car if your vehicle has gas and you don't have power. Let's hope everybody keeps the power on.
All right, for Tommy Christ and Ronnie Rance, thanks for watching Sports Shorts Daily, presented by LeBare's Casino. Have a great